This is like as much as I know about tropicals. So I just came across wild tamarind. I've never actually seen tamarind or didn't know what it looked like out in the wild. But it made me think of a job that we did this year. Every year we do a job for McCormick Spice Company. They're, McCormick Spices, their headquarters is in Baltimore. And every year we do a corporate event for them where they celebrate the flavor of the year, the McCormick flavor of the year. And this year it was tamarind. And if you've ever had tamarind, I don't know, it's like sweet. And the colors for the event were really rich jewel tones, like plums and golds and magentas and yellows. And so it just reminded me of that job, and I've never seen tamarind in the wild. I just came across wild dilly. Never heard of wild dilly, but there's a note here that says it has a close relative that's a non-native and Category 1 invasive exotic species, the sapodilla. I don't know the sapodilla either. However, I was just reading yesterday about bittersweet, which, if you are familiar with bittersweet, it's a very aggressive invasive in our region in Maryland. And there's actually, and a lot of people use it in design, a lot of people forage for it, but there's actually an American bittersweet which looks almost exactly the same to the oriental invasive bittersweet, except that it has a different color outer coating. And you would have to know what that difference is in order to harvest it correctly. But I think there are a lot of natives and non-natives that look very similar and can make it difficult, especially in foraging, to make sure that you're foraging a non-invasive species. I always love cactus gardens because they feel so foreign to me. In our region in Maryland, we don't really have cactus like this. And for our design, since we use all locally sourced stuff, the only cactus we really use are really succulents, and that's just garden variety succulents like hens and chicks. They're very small. And we use those a lot for things like boutonnieres, corsages, head crowns. We do use them sometimes in designs. We don't use them as much in pots. We usually cut them off, cut the little succulent part off, and either wire it or skewer it, and then use it in a design that way. They are always really fun, and they're also always often requested when we have weddings in places like the Rawlings Conservatory, where they have a really big succulent and cactus display. People love using them for weddings at that location. So this is pretty cool. We just found this painted leaf poinsettia, and this is a native Florida poinsettia, which is really cool. I know a lot of people think poinsettias are, people often are looking for a local native alternative to poinsettias for Christmas time. And we do have one grower, John McEwen, who grows this native variety. I've never seen it out in the wild or at a botanical gardens. I've only seen it from John growing it. And you can see that the colored part of the flower are really just the bracts around the flower itself. So these are sort of a corally orange color. This is really cool to see out in the wild. So Key West and Florida in general are the home to tons of orchids. They are so beautiful. If you walk around town, everybody has them on their trees outside in their gardens. In Maryland, we don't really have orchids growing in people's gardens. People do grow them indoors in pots. And we do have one grower, Plant Masters, Leon Carrier, who does grow one type of orchid as a cut flower. And we get them right around Valentine's Day. And we only get maybe 20 stems a year. But people go crazy for them. They are the perfect addition to our local Valentine's Day flowers. And only a handful of people can get them. So they're really special, and I love seeing them when we're here in Florida. So here's a gardenia that I came across. This one's a little weathered. There's a few more blooming on this plant. Gardenia is one of the most fragrant flowers. If you haven't smelled them, they are super perfumey. They're so wonderfully fragrant. We don't use them a ton as a cut flower for a couple of reasons. One, because they're tropical and we don't really have access to them. The other reason is because they are very prone to bruising. So once they're cut, to care for them, you basically have to wrap them in a paper towel in water to make sure that they don't get bruised before you use them. And they really only have a very short vase life. One cool thing though is we have a grower, Lauren from 4x8, who's our rose grower. You never say never to her, because she is trying to grow these in her backyard in Baltimore City. She has a couple plants, and we've actually had a couple cuts from her already last year. They were really short, but they were amazingly fragrant, and just for a little bud vase, they were perfect. A little bit of like tropical vacation in a vase in Maryland. I've been researching hibiscus for the newsletter, and this is an awesome, beautiful double one. These are really like quintessential tropical flowers. They're on every t-shirt, every touristy bag. You see them everywhere. And they're only perennial from zones 10 to 12, so you can't really grow them any place except really warm places. In Maryland, you do see people trying to grow them in pots. My neighbor has one. It runs right along my driveway, so I see it every day when I pull in. And they move it indoors in the winter, so it doesn't freeze. But you can see that they come in these like really warm tropical colors, like hot pinks and corals and golds. They're just really, really pretty.